Stoicism, the secret of silent leaders. Modern life rewards those who speak the loudest, react the fastest, and display themselves without restraint. Opinions are amended instantly. Emotions are expected to be visible. Silence is often mistaken for weakness, hesitation, or indifference. Yet the Stoic tradition teaches the opposite. Silence, when chosen deliberately, is a form of strength. It is evidence of inner order. Stoicism was never a philosophy for crowds. It was practiced by individuals who understood that the most important battles are fought within. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire while writing to himself in private, not to impress others, but to govern his own mind. Epictetus taught that freedom begins where dependence on external approval ends. Seneca warned that a person who cannot rule himself will always be ruled by circumstance. Silent leaders are not passive. They are disciplined. They do not rush to display virtue, because they understand that virtue does not need an audience. They do not argue to protect their ego, because they know that dignity is not granted by agreement. They act, endure, and decide without announcing themselves. This philosophy matters now because modern chaos is not only external, it lives inside the mind, fed by constant stimulation, comparison, and fear of falling behind. Many people feel anxious not because life is unbearable, but because they have surrendered control over their judgments. Stoicism offers a different path. It teaches restraint instead of reaction, responsibility instead of blame, clarity instead of noise. This is not a philosophy of withdrawal, but of quiet command. It begins with one question: are you governing your inner life, or has the world taken that role from you? You are not required to control the world in order to live well within it. This is the first truth Stoicism asks you to accept, and it is also the one most resisted. Modern life encourages the opposite belief. You are told that peace will come once conditions improve, once recognition arrives, once others behave differently, once uncertainty disappears. Stoicism dismantles this illusion calmly and without compromise. Epictetus begins with a simple division. Some things are up to you. Some things are not. This is not a slogan or a comfort. It is a line of responsibility. Your judgments, intentions, values, and actions belong to you. Reputation, outcomes, other people's behavior, the future, and the past do not. Silent leaders build their lives on this distinction. They do not waste energy demanding control where none is possible. In modern life, this discipline is constantly tested. You are exposed to endless opinions, criticism, outrage, and comparison. Social platforms encourage instant response. Silence is framed as weakness or guilt, but the Stoic understands that reacting is often a form of surrender. To react without reflection is to allow external events to dictate your inner state. That is not engagement. That is dependency. The Stoic does not suppress thought or emotion. He examines them. When anger rises, he does not immediately express it, nor does he deny it. He asks what judgment produced it. When fear appears, he does not obey it. He does not obey it automatically. He inspects whether the fear concerns something within his control. Most fears dissolve under this scrutiny. Marcus Aurelius wrote that you have power over your mind, not outside events. This is not meant to minimize hardship. Pain, loss, injustice, and uncertainty remain real. But the suffering they generate depends largely on the meanings you attach to them. Silent leaders learn to separate events from interpretations. They understand that an insult is only harmful if accepted as such. A delay is only catastrophic if judged intolerable. A setback is only humiliating if the ego demands constant victory. This discipline creates a kind of inner stillness, not indifference, but steadiness. The Stoic does not need to announce his composure. He demonstrates it through consistency. When others panic, he slows down. When others escalate, he de-escalates. This is not strategy for dominance. It is respect for reason. Control, in Stoic terms, is not about forcing outcomes. It is about choosing responses aligned with virtue. Courage, justice, temperance, and wisdom are not situational. They do not depend on applause or favorable conditions. Silent leaders act according to these principles, whether they are watched or ignored. Modern anxiety often comes from trying to manage too much. You are encouraged to optimize every outcome, predict every risk, and defend every position. Stoicism asks you to release this burden. You are responsible for your effort, not for the universe's response. Once this is accepted, clarity follows. Decisions become simpler, not easier, but cleaner. There is relief in knowing where responsibility ends. If you speak truthfully and are misunderstood, the misunderstanding is not yours to carry. If you act justly and are criticized, the criticism does not undo the act. Silent leaders understand that character is built in private moments of restraint, not public moments of validation. This is why Stoics value silence, not as avoidance, but as space for judgment. Silence prevents unnecessary error. It allows reason to lead instead of impulse. In a culture that equates visibility with value, choosing silence is an assertion of independence. The inner citadel, as Stoics describe it, is not a place of withdrawal from life. It is a protected space where principles are not negotiated under pressure. From this space, action becomes deliberate. Words are chosen carefully. Attention is directed where it matters. When you stop trying to control what is uncontrollable, energy returns. It can be invested in what truly belongs to you, your conduct. Silent leaders do not waste their strength arguing with reality. They adapt to it without surrendering their values. This practice does not remove difficulty. It removes confusion. And in a world defined by noise and distraction, clarity is a form of quiet power. Power is often misunderstood as the ability to impose one's will. Stoicism offers a different definition. Power is the capacity to remain governed by reason when emotion demands obedience. This is why the Stoics were skeptical of displays of dominance. They understood that a person who cannot master anger, fear, or pride is not strong, regardless of position or influence. Modern life constantly provokes emotional reaction. Outrage is rewarded, sensitivity is exploited, ego is stimulated, and then wounded on a daily basis. Many people live in a cycle of tension, reacting to perceived slights, competing for recognition, and defending identities that feel increasingly fragile. Stoicism approaches this problem without condemnation. It simply observes that a mind ruled by emotion cannot be free. Anger, for the Stoic, is not evidence of strength or moral clarity. It is evidence of a judgment that something intolerable has occurred. Seneca wrote that anger always overreaches. It promises correction but delivers damage, often to the one who carries it. Silent leaders do not deny anger, they delay it. In that delay, anger often reveals itself to be unnecessary. When insult arrives, the Stoic pauses. He asks whether the insult touches his character or merely his image. Character, if grounded in virtue, cannot be harmed by opinion. Image, however, is fragile by nature. Those who rush to defend it surrender peace for approval. Silent leaders accept a misunderstanding as a cost of independence. Fear operates similarly. Much of modern fear is anticipatory. It concerns futures that have not arrived and may never arrive. The Stoic does not eliminate concern, but he refuses to live mentally in imagined disasters. He prepares where preparation is possible and releases the rest. This discipline prevents the mind from exhausting itself, rehearsing outcomes beyond control. Ego is perhaps the most subtle obstacle. It disguises itself as self-respect, ambition, or moral certainty. The Stoics treated ego with suspicion because it ties well-being to comparison. When the ego governs, silence becomes difficult. One must speak to be seen, assert to be valued, win to feel secure. Silent leaders dismantle this dependence deliberately. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that praise adds nothing to the goodness of an action. This is difficult to accept in a world structured around visibility. Yet, it is essential for inner freedom. When actions are chosen for their alignment with reason rather than their reception, emotional stability follows. This does not mean emotional numbness. Stoicism does not ask you to become indifferent to human experience. It asks you to experience emotion without surrendering judgment. Grief may arise, disappointment may appear, but they are not allowed to dictate behavior. They are acknowledged, examined, and placed within a wider understanding of impermanence. Silent leaders understand that emotional mastery is invisible. It is demonstrated not through suppression, but through proportion. They do not overreact to minor setbacks. They do not inflate minor victories. They treat success and failure as events, not identities. In moments of injustice, this restraint becomes especially challenging. Stoicism does not deny injustice. It denies the usefulness of self-corruption in response to it. Acting justly does not require rage. Speaking truth does not require hostility. Silent leaders resist the temptation to mirror the disorder they oppose. This discipline often looks like restraint from the outside, but internally it is effortful. It requires constant attention to judgment, motive, and response. Over time, this effort produces calm, not as an achievement, but as a byproduct of alignment. Those who govern their emotions quietly are often underestimated, yet they endure. They are not shaken by shifts in opinion or mood. Their stability comes from coherence, not control over others. In a world that confuses expression with power, this quiet mastery remains one of the most reliable forms of strength. Stoicism reaches its deepest clarity when it confronts what cannot be avoided. Loss, decline, uncertainty, and death are not philosophical problems to be solved. They are conditions of existence. Many modern anxieties persist because life is treated as though these realities are negotiable. Stoicism refuses this denial. It asks you to look directly at impermanence and still choose to live with integrity. Silent leaders understand that time is indifferent. Youth fades, strength weakens, influence dissolves. What remains is not reputation, but conduct. This awareness does not lead to despair. It sharpens attention. When you understand that nothing external is guaranteed, you stop postponing virtue. You act correctly now, not later, not when conditions improve. Fate, in Stoic terms, is not resignation. It is alignment. The Stoic does not passively accept whatever happens. He accepts that whatever happens has already entered reality, and reality cannot be argued with. Energy spent resisting what has occurred is energy stolen from responding well to it. Modern culture encourages constant resistance to reality. Aging is treated as failure. Limits are treated as injustice. Discomfort is treated as error. Stoicism counters this by restoring proportion. Difficulty is not proof of misalignment. It is proof of being alive. Silent leaders meet difficulty without dramatizing it. They adjust without self-pity. This is especially relevant when life diverges from expectation. Careers stall. Relationships end. Health declines. Recognition fails to arrive. The Stoic response is not denial or forced optimism. It is assessment. What remains within my control? What is required of me? What would reason advise? Stripped of resentment. Marcus Aurelius wrote often about death, not because he was morbid, but because clarity requires finality. When you remember that life is finite, trivial conflicts lose urgency. Ego-driven pursuits lose urgency. What matters becomes simpler. Act justly. Speak truthfully. Accept limits, and do not corrupt your character to escape discomfort. Silent leaders are guided by this simplicity. They do not rush to secure permanence through status or accumulation. They know that no structure outlasts time. What endures is example. The way you meet loss teaches others more than speeches ever will. This approach also reframes success. Stoicism does not measure a life by achievement alone. It measures coherence between values and action. A life that fails publicly but remains internally consistent is not a failure by Stoic standards. A life that succeeds outwardly while betraying its principles. Modern society rarely rewards this distinction. It rewards visibility, speed, and outcome. Stoicism accepts this without complaint. Silent leaders do not expect the world to validate their discipline. They expect resistance. They expect misunderstanding. This expectation protects them from bitterness. When recognition is absent, the Stoic continues. When effort goes unnoticed, the Stoic continues. When circumstances reverse progress, the Stoic adjusts and continues. This persistence is not stubbornness. It is commitment to what depends on the self. Impermanence also changes how the Stoic relates to others. Knowing that people are temporary, moods are temporary, and roles are temporary softens interaction. Harshness becomes unnecessary. Attachment becomes lighter. Appreciation becomes quieter, but deeper. This does not remove responsibility. Stoicism does not excuse withdrawal from duty. It clarifies it. You are responsible for how you show up, not for how long conditions remain favorable. Silent leaders fulfill their roles without clinging to them. There is courage in this acceptance, not the courage of confrontation alone, but the courage of endurance. To continue acting well when reward is uncertain requires strength that is not dependent on adrenaline or approval. It requires steadiness. Stoicism trains this steadiness by repeatedly returning attention to what is essential. Not comfort, not certainty, but character. This focus becomes a stabilizing force when life shifts unpredictably. Those who practice this philosophy are often calm, not because their lives are easy, but because their expectations are accurate. They do not demand permanence from impermanent things. They do not demand fairness from fate. They demand integrity from themselves. This is the quiet resolve of silent leaders. They do not seek to control history. They seek to meet it without self-betrayal. And in doing so, they demonstrate a form of leadership that does not rely on authority, volume, or recognition, but on alignment between reason and action. A quiet life is not an empty one. It is a life where attention is no longer scattered, by every provocation. Stoicism does not promise ease, happiness, or protection from loss. It promises clarity, and clarity, once established, changes how everything else is carried. Silent leaders are not detached from the world. They are deeply engaged, but on their own terms. They choose when to speak and when to remain silent. They act without announcing themselves. They accept that their efforts may go unnoticed, misunderstood, or unrewarded. This acceptance frees them from resentment. The Stoic path is not dramatic. It is repetitive. Each day offers the same work. Govern your judgments, restrain what weakens you, and act in accordance with reason. Progress is measured not by intensity, but by consistency. The person who returns to this discipline quietly, even after failure, is already practicing leadership of the self. Modern life will continue to be loud. Events will continue to be unstable. Opinions will continue to shift. Stoicism does not require withdrawal from these conditions. It requires independence within them. You can participate without being consumed. You can care without clinging. You can act without needing to be seen. This philosophy is not a shield against pain. It is a way of meeting pain without becoming smaller. Over time, this produces a calm that is not forced and a strength that does not need to prove itself. If you choose this path, expect no applause. Expect resistance, misunderstanding, and long stretches where nothing appears to change. The reward is internal coherence, a mind that is not at war with itself, a life that does not depend on favorable conditions to remain intact. If this way of thinking resonates, continue to return to it. Reflection, repetition, and restraint are learned over time. This channel exists as a quiet place for that practice, not as noise, but as reminder, not as instruction, but as steady companionship on a demanding path.